All right. All right. We are on. Welcome to. Gonna do the talk, like everyone does. Welcome to another episode of. I can't do it. I can't do it. I am too conscious about it. But welcome. Another day. This is episode 13 of season 4. Season 4 didn't end at the end of the year, but alas, it doesn't matter because this is beginning of something new. Hey, Captain Baus Ohms Zelin Shartan Kilrathi Soldier. How's it going? How's it going? So today I'll keep on talking about day 2 of the industry workshop. How's everyone doing? I'm good. Nice to be home. Nice to go back to normal, regular schedule. Nice to do warm-ups. It's all good. Hey, Jenny. Anatsuki. Captain Bowles. I'm good, man. I'm good. Hey, good morning, Just Honest. Any surprises at the event? I don't know. Not like not really like surprises. Like, oh shit, my mind is blown surprises. But there was some cool stuff. I'm gonna try to talk about it as much as I can. The feeling of it, the impressions, and whatever I can remember from the day. Captain Boss, if I'm always good, not always, but I try to kind of be realistic about things and see it for the things they are, and I always like remind myself that whatever has happened has happened. You can't go back and change it. You can only change the outcome is in ahead of you, right? So like, if something happens, like yesterday I dropped my wallet, let's say. I didn't, but let's say I did. That fact I can never change, that I dropped the wallet. But whatever happens after, I can affect. So that's why I always try to be, have a good state of mind, because whatever happens has happened. I can change it, but what comes after. So in that way, I can also limit what's going to happen by staying, let's say, staying positive and not worrying about the negative, whatever. I just try to see things in a good light. Hey, narrator, Eric Moy, how's it going? How's it going? So throw me some topics. I'll anything goes today, as per usual. Anything goes. Any word, any combination of words. I'll start drawing and kind of talk about the day of Industry Workshop, day 2. Hey, Eternal Lady, how's it going? Welcome back. Topic me. Oh, that's cool. Ice Ronin 2 Swords Fighter. Alright, interesting. Bone Queen. Megafauna. Like I shined. Rogue Bulgarian Turtle Rapper. What the f... Alright, that's interesting. That is interesting. So let's do the dice roll. Obviously this is not the dice, but I will roll it now. And it's number 3, which is... number 1 is Ice Ronin, number 2 is me, number 3 is Bone Queen. Ooh, I like Bone Queen. This is gonna be interesting. Bone Queen by Atsuki. Fucking wicked topic. That's an awesome idea. I already have like, oh, which idea should I chase? Oh man, crazy. That's an awesome one. Thank you, Dice, and thank you, Hatsuki. All right, I'm gonna go production art style today. Let's see what happens. All right, so day 2. Welcome everyone, by the way. Day 2 of industry workshops was I ended the evening the day before by just kind of having a couple of beers, and not very late night. So I arrived at the early, when they just opened the workshop, and everyone and their and their best friend was standing in queue, because the fact that everyone got free breakfast and free coffee, and the queue for it was really long. Everyone was there more or less standing. So what happened was, I just sat outside of the venue waiting for the queue to be less. So everyone was started queuing. I was sitting there kind of looking at people and talking to some people, some Axis people, and former students actually came. Former students of my CGMA class came and said hi. Kind of just hanging out, talking some shit. And then one of the Beard Bros, Jordy, that's here now occasionally, asked, would you like a coffee? I can get you one. And I said, yes, of course, please. So I'm gonna drink some coffee. Anyway, so after the breakfast, Paul Scott Canavan, talked. He's the art director at Axis, and he talked about the Bungie Destiny short he did for Axis. Was kind of breaking down how a good art director is and talks and communicates with the team, and all these things, like you have to be humble and don't get hung up on your own ideas, but you have to be strong in your vision. All these interesting things of things an art director has to contemplate as they're doing their job. It was a pretty cool talk. He showed the latest Destiny movie from them, and talking about the process of making it. And at the same time, Mark Molnar, he did a talk about. Hey Amir, how's it going? At the same time, Mark Molnar did a talk about process of IP, generating an IP, so that the process is the same, but on 2 different uses and 2 different genres. But the process of using it is the same. So the examples that he talked about was, what was that name, about like a psychologically unstable woman who's on a journey to return her husband's life. Hellblade, was it? For Hellblade, forsake something. Hey Tormod, how's it going? Do you know which one I'm talking about? From the latest game from Ninja Theory, Senua's Sacrifice. This one. Yeah, Senua's Sacrifice. He showed that one, like the design process. Um, he had done lots and lots of production art for it, helping them define the IP and all these things, right? And then he also talked about yeah, Hellblade is a crazy good game if you have it. Um, it's very psychological, and it has so many layers to it. So it should be approached more than just um, a video game. It's an experience, and anyone who had psychological issues will definitely um, see themselves to some degree in that game, which is, you know, not an easy feat for a video game, right? So they did an amazing job portraying her inner turmoil and doubt and all these things. It's an amazing game. I recommend it. Sharta. Oh, really? Wow, you have a insane journey ahead of you then. It's a fantastic game. No spoilers, people. And then he talked about that. Then he showed the Netflix TV show Alienist. If you don't know about it, it's like that in London. It's a crazy game, TV show. Alienist. That. And it's a cool, very nice looking TV show on Netflix. And he kind of went through the process there and what to think about, and kind of explaining how tricky it is, and how people should you know, what they should think of being tasked with a thing like because he did lots of set design and world building in that way, where on Senua's Sacrifice he did a lot of props and head designs and things like that, because that became the most telling visual communication tool. And he said that the environment is a lot heavier in the Alienist, so he was kind of weighing them up, and it was interesting to talk to or listen to. Hey Sayart, welcome, man. And then Iris Muddy and Angie Lobet and Jort van Velbergen did demo, but as soon as Jort started his laptop, Windows decided to update. So during his demo, he was just sitting and waiting for his laptop to update. And that was a shitty situation, obviously, for him. And I think he later on tried to get another slot, but unfortunately, after Saturday, Jort got sick, and he couldn't continue his demo. But in the end, on that day, Saturday, before he got sick, he managed to do a little bit of a demo. It took maybe, he had like 1.5 hours left maybe. He managed to do some cool stuff in I think it was Blender. He did some like mechanical body design. Hey Örjan, welcome back, man. And Rags, what's up? So Örjan, I'm going through day 2 of industry workshops. So after that, Sava Zivkovic, he's a director who's working now as a director at Axis. He did some really cool experiments on his own in terms of learning technology, and he was walking through his journey as a director and how he got there, and like the benefits of experimenting on your spare time. But he kind of talked about how important it is to take time to try things out and learn, like a learning experiment, and push it to the very end. Because how he usually does it is that he before or like to learn a new tool, let's say matte painting for movies, he makes a project with his close friends, uh, and uh, and releases that project, but it's more or less like a massive study, right, of the technique. And every time he iterates a study in that sense of making a project, he adds more or less new people that are experts in a new field to his list of collaborators. So the list of collaborators grows and changes for each project, but for each project they make it bigger and harder and more difficult because they add more things to the pipeline, right? So they didn't have matte painting at one point until they learned it, and now they have matte painting in every time they do it, and so on and so on. So it's really cool to listen into, and how he's kind of very methodical in his evolution as a director, and was cool to see. And he showed movies more or less for every step of his career. Um, so it's more or less like allow yourself to experiment and don't get caught up. Um, and then at the same time, Rafael Rao had a talk about a story of matter, like plausible materials, but I didn't listen into that, so I have no idea what was what on his talk, because I was listening in on Sava's whole talk because he's a friend of mine, and I really wanted to sit in on his talk. And while Paul was talking about his art director job, by the way, I was sitting in the demo stage and he was talking just next to me, so I got best of both worlds, seeing people do their magic. So after lunch, Adrian Mike Jacques had a talk, and Jason Rainville. Jason Rainville did some really good talk about like narrative in illustrations, and how to set it up, and it was very in depth and really interesting to listen to. I didn't listen to all of it. I was kind of bouncing around, uh, but overall, it was good talks. I wasn't very engaged. I was talking to old friends most of that day or middle of the day, discussing things with Evan Almundsen and um, Devin. What's his name? Devin Plots. Rich Carey also, and Balaj. Devin Platz and Balaj. Uh, they did demos. Balaj did use a really cool technique where he had taken photos and cut them out, so he had like lots of cowboy elements on a PSD, and then he pasted them or used them like almost like puppets in his thumbnails. So he was using those cutouts so he could rapidly get like a big pile of wooden things from a collapsed building and a cowboy on a horse in different poses. He just like sourced photos in a massive PSD, and he slapped them down. He tone corrected them. He placed them correctly in depth and hid them with effects, and he sketched up a really good result really fast. So that was really cool to see. Rich Carey, he did really cool line art. If you don't know Rich Carey, he has a really like a striking style. It was very fresh to see and very engaging. He painted some sort of monster dragon thing swirling around. Balaj, his name is, if you Google uh, I don't know his surname. I can't see it fully, but it's Agosto. Actually, 1 second. It just says Balaj, but Agosto something. I can't see the rest of his surname, but I think he works for One Pixel Brush. They have they have cut off his surname in the in the schedule. But if you Google that, Balaj Agosto something something, and IW18 or Industry Workshops, you should get his name. He has a really cool style, and he was a former student of mine years back. It was really cool. There was lots of my former students at Industry Workshops, and all of them were like at a high position, and all of them, I mean, obviously I'm going to toot my own horn here, but all of them were like, "Oh, I had so much use for your class back in the days." And I was like, "Oh, well, thank you, of course." Just swimming in the glory. It's like, yeah, I made you. But no, um, I did not take that credit that I made his career. But nevertheless, it's always fun to hear that when someone has taken your class years before and said, "Oh, I've had so much use for it," you know. That's always that's always good to hear, and makes me very happy that my rantings and teachings have made an impact. You know, that's a little bit of a beautiful legacy to have of sorts. That I've impacted someone's life to that degree. You know. Yeah, I created each one of you. You're all my minions. Not really, but it was cool to see, cool to hear, and cool to meet them. Because I only met them over internet, you know. And after that, Jenny Beaven had a talk. I think everyone was sitting in on. Jenny Beaven is a Oscar-winning costume designer. She worked on Mad Max, that latest Alien movie, where they're out in space, and this life form, is it life form or life? It's a scary movie in space, and they were talking about like how to do the costume design. The fact that they went to see real life spacesuits that's been in space to look at materials and all these things was really cool. Oh, it was called Life. Thank you, Warlorus. Yeah, so that was really cool to hear, and she also had her helps with her, like a woman that was like the coordinator of things, and then a concept artist guy who's like doesn't touch Photoshop. He does everything by hand. Looked fantastic, and she was kind of showing behind the scenes things from Mad Max, the latest Mad Max, of costumes and the issues they had, and she's a really good talker, and it's always fun to hear her. Sayart. I have no idea what that is, but good for you. At the same time, Paul Roberts talked, and I didn't listen in, so I didn't know how it went. Gerard Dunleavy, Stephen Corman, and Sam Santala did demos at the same time. I kind of glanced over at their demos. Oh, right, Captain Boss. He's a minion. I get it. Get it. They did the banana song. Okay. I didn't look at the demos too much. I was occupied with listening to Jenny. at the same time, every time there's a talk, there's also VR stuff happening. So after that, Iris Muddy and Angie Lobet did like a panel of sorts. It was pretty cool. Um, they went through things of like how to be true to yourself, the best way to approach art, and so on. It was pretty interesting to listen to. Nicola Rossi, I didn't really look at, but he worked on Guardians of the Galaxy too. I think I was eating. ILM art panel after that, and at that time I was doing a demo with Henrik Rosenberg and Dina Norlund, but Mike Hill was doing his epic talk at the time, so obviously no one was around, and in that morning, Saturday morning, at the hotel room, I was gonna start my laptop or my Companion 2 to check out, like to prep a bit, and my hard drive crashed. So I didn't have a computer, and I was gonna do demo that day, of course. So I borrowed Balaj's laptop, and I managed to sit and do some demo while Mike Hill was doing his epic rants, and obviously there was no one around, comparatively to other demo artists, but it was all good. It was good fun. I managed to at least squeeze something out, having to draw on a tablet, which I haven't in years, on another one's computer, not having my own brushes, all that. So, but in the end, it was pretty okay. Rags, my Companion 2 I have not fixed yet because I need to plug in USB keyboard into it, and I have just let it be for the time moment. I need to format it. I think I need to do something with it. I have no idea what I need to do with it in order for it to work, but as I don't use it for my day-to-day work, only for traveling, I'm okay with it just being broken. But unfortunately tonight I'm going to go have a talk, and do a demo. I don't know how I'll be able to do that. I informed the people setting it up that I can't. I need to double check that today, but it is what it is. Anyway, so I managed to borrow a laptop. After that, during Mike Hill's talk, Max Berman was supposed to have his talk, but as everyone was listening in on Mike Hill, I mean literally almost everyone, it was like crickets, because Mike Hill does great lectures, rants rather. So Max Berman just decided, I'm not gonna do my talk until Mike Hill is finished. So he kind of just sat out the clock. No one was there really, anyways. He would have been just talking to himself. And while I was doing the demo, but then Mike Hill's finished, and Max Berman continued his talk. And in the evening, it was a concept art panel. Like a King Kong guy, and of course the drinks started flowing, and lots of good laughs were had. And we were drinking Now, was it? I think this night. No, it was the last night. Yeah, that must have been the last night. I have a fun story for the last night, but that comes tomorrow on tomorrow's warm up. But the impressions of day one, day two was really good. Um, I was meeting a lot of people from Axis because I've been working with them for freelance and helping them out and art directing and so on. Um, oh, and Jama arrived on Saturday, um, and he started doing something with those VR guys. And one thing that he did and was showing off was VR multiplayer. So what he had set up was he sits with VR gear on and like sculpting and making a mannequin, and you could go put your VR goggles on and be in the same space as him, see his avatar like a little robot move around and construct 3D, and you would do the same in real time, and you would see what Jama does, and Jama would see what you do, and you could sit and model and like um, teamwork. Sculpt, which was really cool to see. That kind of power um, of creating something together. But obviously, the VR is a little bit in extremely simplified 3D. There's no advanced sculpting ability in it. Um, but the potential of it is insane. That you can just sit and work on a scene together, like you can sit and create a monster, and the other person can create like the floor it stands on and the corridor, and while you are creating the monster, and you come up with an idea for vents, and you say, I'm gonna start doing events over here, and he's like, all right. Everything was mic'd up so you could talk to each other, and then he maybe switches to the monster and puts hair on his back or whatever, and you saw all of that in real time. And apparently, um, supposedly, I didn't see it because there wasn't that many devices, but you can be up to 12 people in one scene, which is insane, which is a really cool potential, um, which is an insane potential of having 12 concept artists mock up a scene. Um, I was talking with a couple of people about the strengths and weaknesses of VR that day, and for me, oh, Walrus, um, both yes and no. I kind of know where I want to take it, obviously, because I made those decisions. But I didn't sweat about the finer details. I knew that with layering and happy accidents, I will get some structure to work with. Um, so I'm kind of keying off my own imagination at times, but most of it is a conscious decision of this can be something more defined down the line, right? Rather than utter random. Action, yeah, it's really cool. Anyway, so what I was saying was like the beauty of VR for me is the fact that for people who don't understand 3D depth that well, being forced to operate in VR will teach you depth perception in art, almost instantaneous. Like a lot of people have issues with proportions in a 3D space. You know, like what is a great length of a tower versus where you are standing versus the buildings around it, right? So like the sense of scale, sense of distance between two objects, that is really hard to understand unless you have that perception. And a way to practice that perception is not drawing from a flat 2D picture of a tower with buildings. It is to be in that location, to be able to turn the camera and shift your physical digital placement and feel the scale, right? And that's a really good way to do it in VR, is to practice that thinking. And a lot of artists have issues with that kind of thinking. And by doing VR, you can boost that thinking dramatically, and that will improve your like depth building, and it could battle, you know, a lot of beginners' problems of having everything in the midground, of having flat spaces and flat depths. Örjan, absolutely. Absolutely, that is a really useful way to do it, because you're forced to think around and space. But what's a great way of thinking about that, Örjan, in ZBrush is the object. But what I mean is the relationship between two objects. And you don't get that in ZBrush really, because the distance is so narrow. Magician, yeah, it costs a lot of money. Alright, that was a rant about day number 2 of industry workshops. I probably forgotten a lot, but tomorrow will be day 3, so we can I will talk about that. I'm currently looking at who to invade. Do you guys have any suggestion who to raid? I'm thinking about So Much Monsters, but he's currently just listening to music. Tim Remmers. Alright, let's raid Tim Remmers. He's doing some... Maybe he usually stops at this time. Visual Jamie. Alright. Let's go raid Visual Jamie. She's doing a pencil drawing of a face. Thanks everyone for coming. Alright, Sharta. It'll be available. Have a great day everyone. Good night. See you tomorrow morning for day 3 and some funny story. Alright, let's go and see what she does. Toodles.